Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I am going to be doing a follow-up video today having to do with Brendan Banfield. If you have been following this case, of course, you will know that he has been found guilty. He was convicted yesterday. And a lot of people, I think, were quite surprised that the jury did not come to a decision sooner. And I was looking at what's going on in the transits right now for Brendan. There's a lot of really, really gnarly stuff going on that I'm going to get into for him. But also, I was curious about what was going on at the time that the jury reached their decision, or actually, I should say the time that the decision was read and everyone found out. And I think there's something really interesting here that I'm going to get into that could astrologically, symbolically, really shed some light on why this decision was made when it was. Um, so this is a bi-wheel. So the middle chart here in the inner ring, this is Brendan Banfield's date of birth. Like I said, when I did his natal chart, I don't have a verified birth time for him. So these houses may not be correct. The moon may not be at 18 Aries. I believe it would have been in Aries no matter what time he was born, but just want to preface the video by saying that. And then on the outer ring, we do have the planets at the exact time that the verdict was read. So 5:01 p.m., Fairfax, Virginia, February 2nd, 2026. So when you're looking at, I do want to just talk about looking at transits in general and major events, or if someone is trying to predict when something might happen, you're really going to want to hone in on the moon. And that is because the moon is the fastest moving planet. It changes degrees every 2 hours. So there is a very felt energy when the moon interacts with planets, and it can act as a spotlight on life events. So it can really reveal where things feel most urgent right now. Now, I will say on Friday afternoon, the moon would have been between 11 and 14 degrees of Cancer if the jury stopped deliberating at 5 o'clock. And that would have been approaching a square to his natal Mars, which is conjunct his Venus, and quite possibly making a stellium to his moon. So that would have been really big for him because it would have meant a sort of struggle in terms of not getting what he wanted. But it was also 5 o'clock. It was a Friday. People were tired. And in my opinion, the transiting moon was making so much more powerful and symbolic of an aspect on Monday, which was when the decision was reached. So that aspect has to do with the moon being at 26 degrees of Leo. And this is almost at 27 degrees of Leo because this is at 26 degrees, 57 seconds. And so at the time, the moon was approaching a direct square to transiting Uranus at 27 Taurus. And this is already making an opposition to Brendan's Saturn that we can see here, his natal Saturn. So in this case, what would have been happening with the moon or the moon at 26 degrees of Leo, is that it would have been in effect making a T-square with this opposition. So I'm going to explain what a T-square is, what that means, what I think this all has to do with the timing of the verdict and when it was made public. So first, I'm going to explain what happens when you do have transiting Uranus making an opposition to your natal Saturn. Interestingly, this can function a bit like a midlife crisis. Keep in mind, Uranus has been going back and forth here for a while. Uranus actually just went direct today, and it's going to be going into Gemini. So if you're watching this and you want to know how Uranus could affect you in the next 8 or so years, you're going to want to look at what house Gemini represents in your natal chart. So whatever house that is, with Uranus making its way through that house over the next 8 years, you could perhaps really start to expect some changes having to do with matters related to that house. So getting back to Brendan Banfield, Uranus is all about unpredictability, sudden change, and really shaking things up, kind of out with the old, in with the new. So the fact that this planet has been opposing his natal Saturn means that this is a time when the structure and the security he has built for himself is really about to be challenged. It's going to be tested and it could very well implode. This is a time when he may not know where to turn or who to turn to for that matter. So the people or situations he's dependent on for a while may no longer be able to provide him with what he needs. And this is kind of a slow burn aspect because Uranus is a very slow moving planet. So I think he's probably been feeling this tension for some time already. Now, the fact that the verdict was read when the moon was at 26 Leo is highly meaningful for this opposition, and I'm going to explain why. So the moon here, it is at the apex of this T square. So in effect, it is making a square between the Uranus at, again, 27 Taurus and a square to Brendan's natal Saturn at 28 Scorpio. So the moon is basically the tension point. So this aspect, this opposition, at this moment, it's all getting channeled through the energy of the moon. The moon is the tension point, and the moon acted as a live trigger. It brought immediate, emotional, and highly visible energy to what this opposition represents for Brendan, which is Uranus, sudden or unexpected events clashing with the structure he has built for himself. So the moon lit up this opposition, making the tension manifest in real time. In other words, even if he's been feeling this opposition for a while, the moon activated this very sudden, emotionally charged moment for him when the realization of the energy becomes really alive. And with this moon, with any moon, there's very much a felt sense of this energy. So you're going to really feel this tension as it's happening. The moon also happens to be in Leo here, which could be important. So even though Brendan himself does not have a personal planet in Leo in his chart, what this symbolizes is that he could have experienced a very visceral feeling in this moment that had to do with Leo type issues. So, for example, a possible blow to his ego, a change of status in terms of how people see him. And even though he did not look that surprised when the verdict was read, what this tells me is that internally he may have been experiencing a ton of emotion. And the moon, like I said, it is approaching a square to the natal Saturn. So this, of course, means the verdict is likely experienced as serious, restrictive, it's quite heavy. And moon represents our emotions. So for Brendan, the moon, it automatically, any moon wants relief and comfort. It wants to feel safe. And again, I wonder if since it's in Leo here, there may have been a need for him to be vindicated, to be celebrated. But in the moment, it was in a power struggle with the Saturn, which of course, imposes consequences and limits. And the moon making a square to Uranus is about a shock factor. The verdict may have come as a shock to him. He would probably be feeling quite stunned or emotionally very on edge in this instance. So this is really, I think, for me, the main, symbolism of what was going on in this moment that aligned with the verdict being read, basically. Um, I am going to talk about, there's more. So I am going to talk about some other, another very key astrological transit that's going on for him right now. So Pluto is doing quite a bit, transiting Pluto is doing quite a bit with his chart. First of all, it's sitting on his natal Jupiter, and it is making a square to his natal Pluto, which is not a fun time. So when Pluto comes around, it has a way of making us end things, let things go, and transforming. Now, if Pluto is making a nice aspect in the transits, like it's making a trine or a sextile to one of your planets, this could mean that Pluto is really backing you up. It's really making it easy for you to get out of that relationship or end the job. It's something you're really wanting to do and that you're on board with. But if Pluto is making a square, it's a whole different story. And transiting Pluto square natal Pluto, again, just like with Uranus, it's going to be a slow burn. It's a fairly long transit. It can last for about 2 years, actually, because Pluto also kind of toggles back and forth, and it is the slowest moving planet. When you have transiting Pluto making a square to a natal Pluto, this is a hard aspect. It has a way of forcing you to change or end things that you're not quite ready to do. So it really may take you out of your comfort zone. It could kind of yank things from you. Now, a lot of times, especially if you're a very aware person, you can see this coming. So, Pluto, I will say if it's transiting a planet, I wouldn't necessarily expect, sudden, unexpected chaos. That's more Uranus. Like I said, with Pluto, it's more of a slow unfurling, a realization. So, for example, if you're not very happy at your job and you're thinking, it's probably time to leave, but I just feel too comfy, the pay is too good. I don't really want to take the time to look for something new, right? We've all been there. So, this is a time when Pluto square Pluto may actually cause you to have to look for that new job. So, you kind of see the signs coming, you're not happy, but you don't really do anything about it, and then you get fired, for example. That's one possible manifestation. So, I bring this up because in Brendan Banfield's case, he saw this trial coming. I assume, well, he absolutely had a choice back in time about whether to plead guilty, maybe even take a plea deal. I don't know if one was offered to him, but I'm just saying that he knew this day was coming for months and months, and he did whatever he could to fight it. It's a square, so there's going to be tension, there's going to be a fight. Um, and so, yeah, he did whatever he could to fight it, even by trying to testify. So I think this is a pretty good example of really fighting something where intuitively you may know, or the odds are really not in your favor, but you just keep going until Pluto intervenes, as it did yesterday, and you're forced to transform. Now, Pluto is interestingly right on his Jupiter, and so it was at 3 degrees of Aquarius before, which happened last spring into the summer. So this is making its second pass at 3 degrees of Aquarius, sitting on his Jupiter. So, whereas Pluto is about transformation and the ending of things, Jupiter can be about your philosophy, your worldview, maybe your spiritual beliefs. So this tells us that this is a time for Brendan's entire or when his entire worldview could change, and it's going to transform how he finds meaning in his life. He's going to perhaps need to really rethink his dreams and his goals. And a conjunction here would be a hard aspect. If the conjunction involved two benefic planets, like, Jupiter is a benefic planet. So let's say he had transiting Sun on his Jupiter, he may have gotten lucky. Or if there was Venus on his Jupiter, that could mean a much more favorable outcome. But these are two, Pluto is a malefic planet. So in this case, someone could really experience a crisis of faith because it's Jupiter, and something could really happen that could shake their beliefs. And he's been convicted. So now, perhaps in his mind, this has really changed his belief about life, liberty, and justice, or even a part of him that believed he could prove his innocence in all of this. Something else I'm thinking about when I did my first video on him, I talked about, the stellium in Aries, making a trine to natal Uranus. He does already have Jupiter square Pluto in his natal chart. So I see him as perhaps feeling as though he's a bit invincible or maybe a lot invincible. Pluto square Jupiter natally, this could be someone who swings between optimism, getting into power struggles to come out on top, to, prove their point. Jupiter could really amplify confidence, faith in oneself. So, looking at his chart, my thought or my question would be whether what happened yesterday really kind of changes in a big way this belief that he has that he could get away with things, or that there's a bit of a shield around him to some extent, that he is untouchable. I thought it was interesting that during the trial, he admitted to having numerous affairs, and apparently his wife did as well, but she didn't leave him, for instance. And he was also cheating with the live-in nanny right under her nose. So in effect, he got away with this, bad boy behavior. And this may have been a bit of a theme throughout his life up until now, when he's basically been handed the biggest punishment of his life. I also wanted to mention, if you notice throughout the trial, after he started to testify, when he wasn't angry and defensive, he had this look on his face. And I will say I saw it even in the moments leading up to the verdict being read. He started to kind of adopt this look, like almost like a little boy who's trying to garner sympathy. Like he had his head bowed down a little bit, his eyes were wide. He kind of had this look of like, who, me? Like I did something wrong. And he does have Sun, Mercury, trine Pluto in his natal chart. So this could have played a part in that. He may have easily been able to communicate in a way that felt he could really manipulate others or curry him favor, no matter what happened, right? This is him trying to prove his innocence. So I'm bringing all of this up because it just reminds me of this invincibility aspect I'm talking about. So let me know what you guys think about that. Well, that is my analysis of the transits for Brendan Banfield, what was going on at the exact moment that this guilty verdict was read. Let me know if you guys like this kind of a video. I'm starting to feel like, people might be interested in this, but most people are wanting to see things like natal charts on really famous people in true crime. So let me know what you guys think. And if you have anything to add, please do so. I really, really love hearing from everybody. Um, If you are into astrology, you're interested in true crime, and you're interested in learning astrology as it relates to true crime, please subscribe to my channel, and I will see you on my next video. Thank you so much for watching.